First of all, we do have the contract type of each task. It could be fixed or time and material. And we could have different methods for calculating the WIP for tasks that are time and material and fixed price. That gives us a bit flexibility to mix and match with different methods depending on if it's the cost recognition or the revenue recognition and so on. And then there are different methods for time and material and fixed price. Fixed price normally is just about, okay, I want a percentage and an amount that is normally the contract price equals the total scheduled billings. So if I believe I've done 50% of a project where the price is 100,000, then I should be able to recognize revenue equals to 50% of the 100,000. Some say, no, we don't have a contract price. We would like to base it on our budget cost. It could be capital projects or internal, you build up some assets or whatever, then you can base it on your budget cost instead. So that's for the fixed price components. And then you could say, so this WIP percentage, do I need to enter it manually? Yeah, actually you do. Could I get some help? Yeah, you could, but then it's back to how do you value this 18% or 50% or whatever it is. Some say, well, it's cost completion. If my actual cost is 20% of my budgeted cost, I should be able to recognize 20%. So that's cost completion. Others say, no, it's related to milestone. So when I achieve a certain milestone, then I can recognize 30%. You might have 10 milestones, but it's only when you achieve or finish milestone number 3, you can recognize 20% as revenue. And then you can recognize another 30% when milestone number 6 is finished and so on. Otherwise, it's very much based on quantity, because when we started out of this, most of our clients were professional services. So then it was more, well, we have done 20 hours out of the 100, then we are 20%. So that's for the fixed price. And for the time and material, normally you could say in a professional services business, that would be, I've done hours here, but I've not been able to invoice it yet. And therefore, I would like to recognize the revenue. And that could be based on the usage, not yet invoiced. I want to value it to price, and normally 100% of it I want to calculate. And a law firm, they can sit on entries that are years old. They have not been able to invoice it yet. So they have this logic where they say, as soon as entries are more than 3 months old, we can only recognize 80%. So there are some logic in how you can play around with it and then populate different percentages. It's used as a reference. And we have in a number of places where you can say, okay, for these projects, please update the WIP percentage equal to whatever logic. There are more sophisticated ways for these time and materials as well, based on budget, or you can exclude items, exclude expensive, include non-chargeable, lots of things. For a construction company where you do the fixed price and you say, I recognize the revenue based on my contract price, how do you recognize the cost? Then those time and material items, normally we then advise that put the cost in separate time and material tasks. You say the task contract type is time and material. That will allow you to have another way of posting the cost recognition, or balancing out maybe more, depending on how you booked the initial cost. Process overview. The WIP process is to adjust what we would like to recognize as revenue and cost, which normally or could be booked as revenue in the GL when you receive, such as the purchase invoice. You might post it to cost. You might, when you send an invoice, post it to a revenue account. You don't have to. Scheduled billings, normally you post it to a balance sheet, and then you need to recognize the revenue later on in the WIP process. So this is to really make sure that the cost and revenue recognition is up to date, depending on your previous posting and how you want to recognize. And the WIP then is controlled by the contract type we have on each task, defining if it's a time and material and fixed price. And then you could say the cost is not time and material. Yeah, but it's just to enable different ways of calculating the WIP. Now it's super complex. We still have that one. On the project, there are some things to be aware of. On each task, there is a project posting setup, and those are used for the credit side when posting WIP. I think that's the way standard BC works as well. You have the product posting group, but we have our own fields or columns if you would like. So you should hide what is standard BC, but it's still controlling what is going to be posted to the credit side in GL. And the general posting setup is the debit side. And sometimes you want to twist that back and forth depending on how you want things to be posted. And then there are a number of things on the project, depending on if it's a time and material task type. You have different ways how you can value and what type of entries, and if you want to exclude any type of entries, or if you want to include non-chargeable, etc. So I think this is just listing the few things, and we're going to go through them in a moment. Settings. So this is on the project. You will see that you have on the project card, there is a section called WIP recognition, settings and allocations. And currently it looks like this. On the left-hand side, you have the tasks with contract type equal to time and material. You define here, and in this case, how to value the included entries. In this case, you say sales value and what entries to be included. In this case, you say just users and sales, meaning any open entries, any entries are not yet invoiced. And you might want to exclude resources or exclude expenses items and just do it for resource entries and so on. So you can quite dynamic, you can play around to achieve really what you want. And on the fixed price tasks, it's more about how to value, in this case, percent complete. Next version, it will be okay, percent complete based on what? Well, cost, meaning cost completion. It could also be quantity. I want it based on the number of hours we have delivered compared to the budgeted number of hours, meaning quantity is the base. So this section is what we normally play around with. There is also this use advanced WIP. So if you check that one, then we open up a number of additional fields, meaning I can have different methods used for entries related to resource, expenses, or items. Where you can say for resources, I want to have the cost value, users entries, and you can mix and match, and it can even be based on the budget entries. So it's very flexible. So that's why I say it's super to have a simple example in a spreadsheet, and then we can start playing around. And in the product plan, we have the contract type, right, that we just discussed, and whether chargeable, non-chargeable part of it, the job posting group that will control, meaning that we, for a given task, we can have a separate job posting group to make sure it's posted on a separate GL account. Because we do not use the standard BC. So you simply have, I would say, 4. One is for fixed price. And there are 3 when it's time and material, meaning you can post items to one account, resource to another, and expenses to a third for one given task. Then you can have different job posting groups, so you can play around with more. You also have this in the WIP total. There is an option to say exclude from WIP, but that goes with anything, regardless of type. And that's a standard BC feature. These are the ones that we use on the product posting group setup. This one is used for items, expenses, resources, and in this case, it's the same account. And clearly, you can have as many as you want. And on this task, we're going to post to this account, and another task, another account, etc. But for the fixed price, it's just going to be one account because we don't really know, right? This is normally just the revenue recognition account. And then you have the corresponding accounts on the debit side, and those you find on the general posting group setup. They're called resource, expense, item, and another one for fixed. So these accounts on the debit side will post here. There is something called a scheduled billing account. So assuming you have scheduled billings, normally when you post and send the invoice with the scheduled billing, upfront 20%, whatever, you post it to a balance sheet. And later on, you run the WIP process to recognize the revenue. In the end, when you close and when you post to GL, you say, I want to adjust for my scheduled billings, or it's actually called payment invoices. It will net out whatever you have in the scheduled billing and instead post it to the sales account. So that's the settings. Then we have another little section just below this WIP recognition. It's called WIP calculation. I think it's called the same in BC, where actually the red one here, that's the percentage you're going to use when calculating WIP. So 100, it's 100% that you're going to use where the contract type is time and material. And on this side is for fixed price. What percentage are you going to use here? So you see the percentage could be different for your contract type of business for what you want to recognize as revenue. And if we have the cost on the time and material type of tasks, we could use another percentage, because for some it's more to move out what you currently have on the GL cost into a balance sheet. You're balancing out what shouldn't be recognized as cost currently. So the yellow marked field here, they're more for reference. So here you have the budget completion or estimate completion. You have it on both sides. And that's going to change in the next June release, because currently it's based on resource quantity. If I've done 10 of the 15 days, my budget completion would be 66.7%. But the cost completion might be different. So depending on what you have defined on the product card, is it going to be cost completion or quantity completion, so to say? You might have different figures here, but you can use it both for the number of days, percentage completed, or based on total cost. And this is used as a reference, and then you populate your value. And then we have some ways where you might want to bulk kind of update. Please update my projects based on the cost completion percentage. Boom, because you don't want to go through 400 projects and update them one by one. And once that is set, you just calculate WIP, you get something, you can review it, and then you post it to GL. That's the way it works in standard as well. And every time we run the WIP, we will reverse whatever you currently have, and then it will calculate again. But so far, it's just called project WIP entries. That one, you calculate the WIP, and you can see the product WIP entries. But when posted to GL, it's going to become product WIP GL entries. And actually, you will also be able to see it on the detailed product ledger entries that we have, how much actually you have in WIP. So if you want to do some fancy advanced reporting, you have the data. Then you can do it project by project, or you can do it in this page where you just get all your projects, filter them out. Normally, a product manager would only be able to see his own. Well, you have the filter, and you can have fixed filters or normal. And here you have the percentage, right? The WIP percentage I'm going to use for my time and material tasks and my fixed price tasks. You calculate the WIP, you get the calculated WIP amounts. And there are some additional, and ignore the name matter here, but what is open to invoice, the last entry and the last invoice entry and so on. So normally for some, they use this as a process page. If you go to the actions here, you can say, okay, just update my WIP percentage based on my cost completion percentage. Or here I have 5 or 6 projects, but typically I guess they have kind of 200 projects. You don't want to one by one, you just want to update them. And then for the product manager to say, well, I checked it, it's good enough. And they click WIP checked, and you will have the date and the name, etc. And that might be also the reference for finance to say, okay, for all the projects where WIP is checked, just post a WIP. It's optional because some use this as a way to collaborate, but you don't have to. It's for audit trail and so on. Who actually approved this or who? I don't know. You can run the process separately for time and material and fixed price. So you don't need to do all in one go. You could say, okay, now I unclick the time and material, say, now I just want to do the fixed price part of it and calculate WIP until date, until which entries should I include in my calculation and on what date should I post my WIP, etc. Under actions, you have a number of update the fixed price percentage, this column, based on my estimate completion or budget completion percentage. I mean, to make it a little bit easier, otherwise someone need to populate that manually. And let's see going forward if it's also going to add options here to say, okay, update the fixed price based on cost completion percentage. Boom. And then someone need to say, no, I don't think we can recognize revenue equal to cost completion. I want to adjust it. And then you need to adjust it manually before you post it or calculate it. This is just an example because we normally say, okay, could you please provide an example? So this is, something that one client did. Okay, this is the way we do it. We invoice something the first month, and this is the way we want to recognize the revenue. No. So we take this and we put it into another spreadsheet we have. And sometimes this is also used when onboarding a partner to explain, okay, depending on what we do and how we set it up, where is things actually going to be posted and ending up in the balance sheet and income statement? Because when you do a demo of the WIP process, no one understands anything because it just happens behind the scene. So it's kind of easier to do it like this. And then you could go back and forth between this one and you did something, you posted it and you got this amount equals to what they saw on the spreadsheet. And this one is easier to, in the end, understand what you actually did when you did the demo. But essentially, there are so many ways we can do it. It's like a toolbox. We just need to figure out the way to do it because although everyone says, no, we are like everyone else. I've never seen anyone doing it the same way. We can easily manage for construction, fixed price, etc. For the revenue recognition, super important for them. That's normally very straightforward. Sometimes people have a spreadsheet today and there they can do whatever. And all of a sudden they need to define and have a rule. This is the way it's going to be done. And all of a sudden, tons of discussions.